Thank you very much. Good morning, and in some places, good afternoon to the teenagers that are part of this webinar, as well as the adults and everyone that's watching this via Facebook. As you know, this is the last webinar of the SIPPINNA Forum that we will celebrate in September. This webinar, same as the rest, will be divided into two parts. The first will be positive parenting, and the second part will be the recommendations. My name is Susana Ortiz, and I have the honor of being in this webinar. And we want to guarantee and promote that children and teenagers grow up and develop in healthy, loving, and receptive to their needs in these environments to guarantee their well-being and development. So that's why it's necessary to set this topic on the table, how as governments we need to act, but to listen to what the teenagers and children want. To start with the dialogue in positive parenting, I will remind you briefly of the participation rules. Since we have a lot of participation, we ask that the interventions limit themselves to 1.5 minutes so everyone can participate. We also suggest that you don't use technical language or tools such as PowerPoint. And we have Portuguese translation. You can choose your language as well as English translation. And I remind you that you must say your name and the institutional group that you belong to at the beginning of your participation. And I will be giving the word to one or another. So I'd like to start off with a dialogue of positive parenting with this question. How do you think that teenagers, children can participate in positive parenting, in public policy? And I would like to give Melissa the floor. Please go ahead, Melissa. Good morning or afternoon. My name is Melissa. I'm 16 years old. And according to my experience in Peru, for teenagers and children to really contribute in positive parenting as a public policy, it's only through their own voices and their experiences. And particularly, we have three key areas to achieve this. And the first would be active participation in public policy to promote children and teenagers as agents of change, to sensitize the parents, and to strengthen the mitigation programs, as well as the participation of other actors such as civil societies. How can we achieve these three key areas? First, to ask teenagers and children how they can contribute to public positive parenting, as well as to hear about their experiences in this regard, and direct this to the parents, and the volunteers can receive some recommendations in order to educate their parents in positive parenting. We need a positive participation in public policy, promoting teenagers and children's participation, and to sensitize the parents. In this three key area plan that can improve these public policies, it's clear that we can achieve these activities with collaboration of other entities such as civil societies that I would like to explain that further in the future. And with public policy, children and teenagers would be able to participate in their improvement. And as a spokesperson, I can say that this can only be implemented if children and teenagers are listened to. And it's not just passive listening, it should go beyond that. So that's all from my part. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Melissa. And I believe that you start off this webinar with key items. So it's not just about acting and waiting for tomorrow for some things to happen. So I would like to rescue and involve all of you as agents of change, not just speaking about it, but how can we translate this in public policy? Thank you very much. As we move further along, you can mention the civil society's participation. Go ahead, Salvador. Thank you very much and good afternoon. My name is Salvador. I'm from the Estado de Mexico. I'm 14 years old, and I think this is a very assertive subject. And so to start this off, I'd like to say that one of the items we have highlighted is to have spaces where we can participate and we can express our expectations or even our experiences and the way this violence affects our lives, our emotions, with the objective of making society more conscious. We also agree that we need to showcase our rights and avoid any kind of violence against us, because we know that sometimes it's difficult for us to report because we don't have the confidence or we're afraid of getting into trouble if we report something, if we denounce it. So from our perspective, we ask that we are able to make people more conscious and report. It's also very important for children and teenagers to have an active participation in public policy in a direct manner. Also, it's important to raise our voices in favor of teenagers and children so violence will not become normalized and our rights be respected. Also, that violence is not used as a way of parenting and we can have a better future. So thank you very much for this space that you allow us to be in, to be heard and responded to. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Salvador. And mostly for being in this space, because we know that what you're sharing, it's not just about what you think, but what other children and teenagers think as well. I think it's very important that we can listen to your experiences of situations involving violence, because sometimes adults can go to and talk about an investigation, and we know the effects of certain violence. But if you have had such experiences, we wanted to hear it directly from yourselves, how you're experiencing this, how it's affecting you, and this is what you can mention. So thank you very much for laying this on the table. I'd like to hand the mic over to Victoria. Please go ahead.
Oi, pessoal, bom dia, boa tarde. Meu nome é Victoria, sou natural do Brasil. Vou falar
I'm
sobre
Victoria, I'm
parentalidade
from Brazil.
positiva. Eu quis ser relatora
I am towards positive
porque é um tema
parenting. I
que me
wanted
interessa por
to
curiosidade.
narrate
Pois bem, vamos lá.
on this subject
Quando a
because
gente
I'm
aborda a
very
aprendizagem
curious about
positiva,
it.
percebemos que é um assunto novo e que
When we talk
existem muitas
about
propostas a
the
seu respeito,
positive quality,
como na criação de
we know that
crianças
there
e
are many
adolescentes.
proposals,
Percebe-se
like, for
que é
example,
necessária uma formulação comum, a
the
erradicação do trabalho
parenting
infantil,
of
o
children
trabalho
and
em rede,
teenagers. We
causas
need
responsáveis
values.
pelas
We
crianças
need
e os
to
adolescentes.
avoid child
Na
labor.
implementação de políticas públicas, se vê que no
And we need to
apenas em
implement
um
public
estado todo
policy,
debatendo sobre,
like,
em
as we see it in
expansão,
Brazil.
assim dando um
The
exemplo
state is
quão
only
importante é a
debating
participação
upon this
ativa de
subject,
crianças e
on this
adolescentes,
subject. So,
principalmente nos
for
espaços
example,
públicos,
how
com a
important the
divulgação da
participation of
parentalidade
children and
positiva,
teenagers
para que
is,
sejam
especially in
acessíveis e
public
diante da nossa sociedade.
spaces for
A criação de políticas
divulging positive
públicas ativas para a
parenting.
parentalidade
So it can be
positiva
something
deve
well
estar
known in
desde
our society. The creation
junto
of
com
public
formas de
policy
combate
must be
violentos, evasão escolar, trabalho
within
infantil,
and
para que as crianças possam ter
without any form of
desenvolvimento
violence
infantil adequado para
and
elas. coisas que não
child
devem,
exploitation,
tendo em bons
so we
pensamentos
can
e
have
tendendo a serem eliminados nos
correct
âmbitos sociais.
upbringing.
Assim, pais e
So I have
responsáveis
two
poderiam ter
thoughts
um
on this.
determinado conhecimento a respeito
In this way,
do
parents
que é
and
uma
the
educação ser violenta,
legal
uma
guardians
criança crescendo
can
sem
know
ser
what
aceitada
education
no
without
lar, a
violence is
necessidade da efetivação das
to
leis à
preserve
proteção de
children's
algumas,
innocence
para que esse tema
and
seja
to have
aumentado
effective
e
laws,
efetivado
create
nos estados,
certain laws so
as
this
questões de
subject
obrigando o
can be
Estado, escola
effective
e família. São esses os portadores
in the
que podem
state.
oferecer uma
And the
criação
connections
positiva
are
para
between
nós crianças e
state, family,
adolescentes.
and school.
Se não existe
And
debate
it can
nesse
offer
respeito,
positive
não existe consenso
parenting for
necessário para
children and
desenvolver
teenagers. If
algo
there's
que
no
para
debate
crianças e
between these
adolescentes não
three,
tem como ter
there
consenso
won't
se o
be enough
Estado, a
consciousness to
família e
develop
as
something
escolas não
for
estiverem consenso, não estiverem juntos,
children and
lutando
teenagers.
contra tudo aquilo que vem
If these
violando os
institutions
direitos
don't
desses
have the consciousness
adolescentes.
and are not
Talvez
working together
possamos,
against
nós juntos,
everything
nós
that
crianças e
violates
adolescentes, em algum
children's
Brasil e
and
muitas vezes
teenagers'
em número
rights,
coletivo,
perhaps we can
cada levar um
be
pouquinho da
as
parentalidade
one,
positiva para os nossos pais,
teenagers
para os
and
nossos responsáveis,
children,
nas
to
escolas, nos
elevate
trabalhos
positive
públicos.
parenting
E por fim é isso.
with our parents
Eu
in
mando
schools,
recordações do Brasil para
in our
todos
groups.
vocês. É uma honra estar aqui com vocês.
So
Eu
I
agradeço muito vocês
send
do
greetings
MEC
from
por
Brazil
terem
to all of you.
solicitado e
It's an
me
honor to be
apoiado.
here,
Muito obrigada.
and I'm grateful to Mexico for supporting this.
Muchísimas gracias a ti, Victoria.
Thank you very much,
Al final
Victoria.
recuperaré justamente
I will
puntos
go
importantes que ya
back to
mencionaste, sobre todo
certain key
la
items that
primera
you've
capacitación
mentioned,
que incluye modificaciones o
such
revisiones de las
as
leyes.
the
Muchas
modifying
gracias.
laws.
Para continuar, me gustaría dar la palabra a
In order to
Benedict.
continue, I'd like to hand over the floor to, my name is Benedict. I am 16 years old. I live in Colombia, and responding this question, I consider that children and teenagers must normalize everything that helps us develop psychologically, starting with our family. Our family is our main emotional circle, and we should keep it in mind as a positive point and not be afraid to express ourselves. And the institutions are slowly catching up to this. I've been authorized, well, to have people that are authorized to improve this development. And also the authorities can engage and benefit us. But the main issue is that we are talking about this as a very negative thing. This interfere to express ourselves. What will they say? Is it good? Is it bad? I'm not feeling what the rest are feeling, for example, but thanks to many tools that we've been using and that are helping us, well, we are a much more open society, and we are more willing as a society to move towards this change. So thank you very much. I hope you liked my intervention.
Muchísimas gracias, Benedict. Sin duda,
Thank you
tomar
very
la
much, Benedict.
participación de todos en cuenta es
Without a
muy necesario.
doubt,
Para
we
continuar, me
welcome the
gustaría dar la
participation
palabra
from
a
everyone.
Rebeca.
I'd like to hand over the floor to Rebecca.
Hola, soy Rebeca, tengo 10 años.
Hello, I'm Rebecca. I'm 10 years old. I'm from Mexico, and I'd like to start off with a
El amor y el
quote.
respeto son las
Love
llaves
and
de la
respect
crianza
are the
positiva.
key of positive
Son
parenting.
Ya con esta frase puedo
With this
decirles que
phrase,
para
I can
conocer
tell
bien
you
o mal
that in
a un
order
niño,
to
niña o
know what
adolescente,
children or
es necesario
teenagers
escucharlos
need,
y no adivinar.
it's necessary
Que el
to
gobierno
listen
y
to
las
them,
autoridades
not
realmente se
guess.
tomen el tiempo de
The
escuchar sus
government and
inquietudes y
institutions really
necesidades.
take their time to listen to
Ellos
their
deben
needs.
estar en cada
They
parte de
should
este
be
proceso
in every
con
part of
una
this process with
participación activa y
an active
directa en base a
participation
sus experiencias como
directly
infantes. Que la sociedad
listening
y
to
el
their
gobierno
needs as
participen
children
para que
and
conozcan
teenagers,
sus
that
derechos
society and the
y sus
government get
desacatos.
involved to know
Mi
their
decisión de ser
rights.
vocera es justo
And my
para que
decision to
las
be a
infancias
spokesperson
reconozcan sus derechos y
is
cada vez
precisely for
problemas de
these
violencia y
instances
maltrato
to
disminuyan.
recognize our rights
Busco
and
que la sociedad mejore
treat
y para que
violence.
podamos
I
evolucionar
seek
y
the
seamos
improvement of
felices.
society so we can all
Muchas
evolve
gracias.
and be happy. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, Rebeca, sobre todo también
Thank
por la
you very
participación
much,
que
Rebecca,
tuviste en
especially
nuestro
for
podcast.
the phrase you have shared with us, I think it fits in properly. I'd like to hand over the mic to Fernando from Paraguay. Hi, can you hear me? We can hear you perfectly. I'm Fernando from Paraguay. I'm 14 years old and I represent this institution. I think that a way to invite children and teenagers to participate in a more active manner in public policy for positive parenting would be the implementation of channels where they can narrate their specific needs. From my personal experience in my country, I've realized that people's needs, especially the ones in urban areas, might not be the same as the ones that live far away from the capital. So I'd like to voice the concerns in my country, and I think that that's a good way for children and teenagers to participate actively. Thank you very much, Fernando, and I think that we go back to this. I think it's very important to have a active participation that includes every context and need. Thank you very much. I'd like to hand over the mic to Andrea from Mexico. Please go ahead. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Andrea. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a part of Quebec gang, and it has to do with a certain organization in its city that sees Ciudad Quebec has given me the opportunity to see how people are interested in policy and politics and issues that go beyond borders, and to educate ourselves in positive parenting. I think that fundamentally we must keep in mind that understand their topics. It's interesting, not just for us, but for adults as well. And I think that public policy should be implemented by parents and public servants alike. This might allow us to establish certain boundaries and agreements starting from our homes. And in this way, I think that when we express our opinions, our experiences in public spaces such as this, we might have clarity of the same experiences having to do with positive parenting, so we'll know what to say about the subject when we participate. In this sense, we must mention that collective issues are not the same as individual issues. This is crucial for teenagers and children, and to have common agreements when we take this to legislation, and to have a more collaborative task between the institutions. And to thank you for this forum, I'd like to invite the audience to reflect upon all our participations today, because positive parenting, I think it's the best way of educating people that will come out to the world with a better understanding of nonviolence. People that I've known closely have spoken to me about difficult situations in America with a constant exhibition to violence through media, and we don't need that to be acted upon us. And I think change starts with me and with you that are listening here, and also to make the commitment to gift children and current and future generation with a positive parenting or raising. And thank you for opening up to hear our voices, and we defend most of all, and the people that need most that this message is delivered. Thank you very
sobre
much. And
todo
thank
cuando ya
you,
hablas
Andrea,
de
for what you
ya con
mentioned.
que, o sea, realmente ya hablas sobre
And
cómo
we
realmente
need to
implementar
come
la
up with
crianza
some
positiva en
agreements
diferentes
to how to
familias.
implement positive
Muchísimas
parenting
gracias.
and the
No
challenges
sé
it
si, Melissa,
implies.
tengas algo más que agregar a tu
Melissa,
participación.
would you like to add something else to your participation?
Bueno, sí, me
Well,
gustaría
yes, I'd
hablar
like
tal vez de
to
otros
talk
autores
about
importantes
other important
que
authors
son, o sea, esenciales para
that are
la
essential
participación de los niños y
for
adolescentes en
children
la
and
crianza
and
positiva,
teenagers' participation
como
on positive
política pública.
parenting, such
Y
as
bueno,
public
específicamente, y
policy.
para ser breve,
But specifically, and to be
el
brief,
involucramiento en políticas públicas como
to
mencioné al
involve
principio hace
ourselves in public
que
policy
participen en la formulación y evaluación de
and for
políticas
them to
públicas de crianza
participate
positiva
in
y
creating
que así
public
se
policy
garantice que
and
sus
in
voces
positive
sean
parenting,
escuchadas y
and to
consideradas.
guarantee that their voices are
Y
heard
que
and
también para que se realice un verdadero cambio se debe
taken
de
into
considerar
account,
también el
because in
aspecto
order to promote real
legislativo.
change, we need to
Si
look
bien
at the
en una
legislative
comunidad los niños y
aspect.
niñas adolescentes pueden
If in
ser
a
educados,
community, children and teenagers
hablen
can educate
inglés,
their parents through
también
workshops.
estos deben ser escuchados durante la
These
formulación y evaluación de
they
políticas
must be
de
listened
crianza
to
positiva,
when
ya que son los mismos
policy
niños, niñas y adolescentes que saben si es que
on
una
positive
ley
parenting is
verdaderamente
being
está en vigor
created.
y realiza un
And a
cambio o
law you
solo es
can
una
is
declaración al
really
respecto.
tangible. It's
Es por
not
ello
just a
que es
declaration
importante
in a
que los niños y
document.
adolescentes
So
participen
that's
de
why
esta
it's
forma.
important for children and
Y
teenagers to
solamente
participate that
quiero
way. And
cerrar
I would
esto. Me gustaría
only like
recalcar eso,
to
que incluso si no
highlight
es para
this,
que ellos
that
participen activamente en estas reuniones, sino
not
que
for them just
los
to
mismos
participate actively in these meetings, but
municipios pueden
that
apoyar en
the
la implementación de planes de
local
estudio
governments can
escolares acerca de
support
crianza
with
positiva o
school
educación
programs
sobre derechos infantiles
on
en su
positive
currículum.
parenting or
Así
children's
que si en
rights
verdad
in
queremos
their
impulsar una mejor
curriculum.
hacienda
So if
más
we
que una
want to make a
declaración de
change that
sentimientos
transcends
que
just a
impacten a los
declaration in a
niños, niñas y
document and
adolescentes,
impact the
entonces se
families of
necesita este
children
tipo de
and teenagers, then
colaboración
we need this kind
con
of
la mayor cantidad de
collaboration
actores, tanto como
with
los niños, niñas y
the most
adolescentes,
amount of
como los
actors,
padres y la sociedad civil.
such
Así
as
que no, solo quería decir
teenagers,
eso.
children, parents, and civil
Muchísimas
societies.
gracias,
I just
Melissa.
wanted to add
Y
that.
bueno, para cerrar
Thank you very much,
con
Melissa.
esta
And to
participación
close
en
this
torno a esta primera pregunta, me gustaría
participation regarding this first
comenzar dando
question,
la palabra
I'd
a
like to
Angelina.
hand
Adelante.
the word to Angelina from
Hola,
Ecuador.
buenas tardes
Please
a
go ahead.
todos.
Good
Muchísimas
afternoon to
gracias
everyone.
por las
Thank you very
palabras.
much for your
Soy
words.
vocera del movimiento
I
Crianza
am
Niña
a
y bueno, en
spokesperson
Niños
of the
buscamos
movement to
solo
be a
igualdad,
children for
especialmente para
a
las niñas, y
just
en
world
contra de la
with
violencia contra ellas.
equality,
Incluso por esta
especially for
espacio
girls
seguro de
and
participación
against
en donde
violence.
representamos las
Thank you
luchas
for
de nuestra
allowing me
sociedad
to be in
y
this
formamos
space
el
of
cambio para el mundo.
participation where we can
A lo largo
form
del taller y
change.
a lo largo de las presentaciones de mis compañeros,
Throughout the
lo que
workshop
más
and
me ha gustado
my
es lo
peers'
interesante
participation,
de cómo un tema tan
I
relevante
found
que habla
something
sobre
very
niñez o
interesting that such a
adolescencia
relevant subject,
nos
such as
hace
the one that
cuestionarnos
talks
el
about
por qué el mijo no se puede trabajar con sus
teenagers and
principales
children.
protagonistas, quienes deberían ser tan
I have the
escuchados todo el
question,
tiempo. Hay
why are
mucho
we
más para
not
crear
the
leyes sobre
main
educación.
characters here and
Por
listen
esto es
to,
necesario
in
tratar
order to
temas
create
como el
laws? So it's
reconocimiento a los
necessary
factores
to
culturales de violencia
dive in the
que
subject of
todavía siguen
social
ocurriendo,
cultural
para que así
violence
esto sea un
patterns.
proceso
So this
intergeneracional
can be
que
an
inicie desde padres y
intergenerational
familias,
process
que
that
desee
starts
formar
with
nuevas sociedades que
parents
estén abiertas a
and
un
promote
cambio
new
guiados por el
societies that are
respeto, por el
open
amor
to
y por el
change,
respeto,
guided, of
que nos
course, by
haga
love and
cuestionar
respect,
comportamientos
that
en
will
el
lead us
mundo
to
que
question
lamentablemente fueron muy
certain
comunes para nuestros
behaviors
padres
that
cuando ellos
are
fueron criados. Que sepan que
regretfully very
existen
common
otras
mistakes for our
metodologías
parents, that
que
they know
son
that there
mucho
are
más
other
abiertas y que también
methodologies that are
superen
much more
nuestra
open
crianza.
and
Entonces,
much more
¿qué
effective
podemos hacer para cambiar
in
esta
positive
realidad?
parenting. So what can
Debemos
we
enfocar
do
los
to
esfuerzos
shift
en
this
fundamentos tales:
reality? We
capacitación,
have to focus on
difusión y
three
formación,
fundamental
que le
things:
brindarán ese empoderamiento y
outreach,
confianza a nuestra niñez, adolescencia y
training,
juventud. El
and
primero, capacitación.
implementation.
Como
The
sabemos,
first,
este es un proceso
training,
que no se realiza muy
we know that
comúnmente en
it's a
las
process
comunidades.
that is not very
La
common
mayoría
in
de
our
organizaciones
society.
que lo hacen
Most
son muy
organizations that
gubernamentales
promote
y
this
se
are
encargan de llevar a las
non-governmental,
comunidades información sobre qué es crianza
and
positiva,
they're
los
about
factores que le involucran, como la
taking
alimentación
information
adecuada para
to
evitar la alimentación
communities
crónica infantil, hasta cómo y cuál debe
from
ser el
that go
cuidado
from
correspondiente
nutrition
en las diferentes
to
edades.
what the proper care
Por
should
eso
be in
considero
different
que es muy
ages. So I
importante
consider
empezar a
that it's very
pensar
important
en el
to
ODS de alianzas
start
estratégicas.
thinking on
Sé que
the
en el
ODS
proceso de
of
este primer
strategic
eje es
alliances,
importante
because
crear compromisos
in this first
estables con
axis,
nuestro gobierno
it's very
y sus
important to
instancias
create
públicas, ya que son los principales
stable commitments with
responsables
our
de
government
realizar
and public
geolocalizar y
institutions.
capacitar a las personas.
And
Un
it's very
ejemplo de
important to
esto aquí en
train
Ecuador
people.
es el Ministerio
For example,
personas
this
de
in
coordinación
Ecuador
social
is
y
a
ofrece
Ministry
capacitación sobre cómo
of
llevar la crianza
Outreach,
positiva en la primera infancia.
and it leads
Pero que
us to how to create
lamentablemente no
positive
alcanza a
parenting in
capacitar a
the
un gran número de familias y de
first
sectores.
infancy.
Y por ello
But
es
unfortunately,
importante
this does
generar
not
estas
reach
alianzas
children or teenagers in
estratégicas.
other
Y
sectors.
sigue el
That's why it's
siguiente
important
paso,
to
la difusión,
establish
en
these
especial
strategic
para que se entienda que
alliances.
desde
And
casa,
it's
desde las
essential
instituciones
to
educativas,
understand
desde
that from our
campañas, no
homes
solo
or
presenciales,
public
sino también
institutions with
virtuales, podemos
campaigns,
hacer un
not just
alcance mucho
physical
más
but
asertivo en las
virtual as
niñas y
well, we can have a
adolescentes.
more
Y como lo
assertive
mencionaba, plantar esa semillita del
reach.
conocimiento. Así llegamos
And
al
this is
tercer
the
eje,
basis of
formación,
knowledge.
que
So
para mí es
we
el más
lead to
importante.
this third
Que una vez tenemos
item,
desde
which is
nuestra niñez o
training. It's
adolescencia
very
juventud
important because
capacitada,
as
ellas y
teenagers,
ellos, como agentes de cambio, pueden hacer estas
we are
contribuciones
agents
en
of
materias
change
relacionadas a crianza
and can
positiva.
promote
Y así desde la experiencia, desde su propia
positive
voz, crear
parenting,
la creación de
and
una
to
política
listen to
pública
the
que realmente
experience
les
from our
incluya.
own
Este espacio de
voice
participación
to
directa,
create
como es el
public
espacio
policy.
de niñez, adolescencia y juventud,
And in these
es
spaces of
primordial, ya sea mediante
childhood and
encuestas, mesas de trabajo y mucho más
teenagers
importante, espacios seguros donde los
is
mismos puedan
to take
sentirse ellos mismos, donde se sientan cómodos y puedan
certain
expresarse.
steps
Y así la
so they can
crianza
feel comfortable
positiva
to
también
express
empieza desde
themselves.
casa,
And
sanando
positive
heridas del
parenting
pasado,
starts off
y
at
que este
home,
cambio empiece en
and
todos
that
nuestros
this
espacios más
change
cotidianos.
happen in most of our spaces, the spaces we live
Muchísimas
in.
gracias por todo lo
Thank you
que
very
nos
much for
comentaste,
everything
Angelina.
you tell
Nada
us,
más
Angelina.
me
And
gustaría rápidamente
I would like to
resaltar
quickly
lo que
highlight
ya nuestras y nuestros voceros nos
what
han,
our
ahora sí que
spokespeople have
expresado en torno
expressed
a cómo pueden participar ellas y ellos en la mejora de la crianza positiva como política pública.
in
Escuchamos
relation
sus
of how
agentes
they
de
can
cambio,
participate in public
escuchar sus
policy, to
expectativas, sus
have agents of
experiencias, no solo sobre
change,
crianza positiva,
and
sino
to listen
también
to
sobre
their
algunos
experiences, not just
métodos
within
violentos de
positive
crianza, la
parenting, but
creación de
with
leyes y
certain methods
normatificación
of
tomando en
parenting,
cuenta su participación, la
and the
importancia del
modification of certain
respeto,
laws, the
tomar en cuenta la
importance of
diversidad
love
de
and
contextos
respect,
y por tanto de
and the
necesidades en
diversity of
infancias,
contexts
adolescencias y juventudes
in
para integrarlo esto
children,
dentro de las
teenagers, and
pautas
young
que
people
realmente se requieren para integrar políticas
to
públicas.
establish
Me parece muy bueno
certain public
establecer
policy
límites, ¿no? No
in the way
tener
that
una
is
crianza
needed. It's very
permisiva,
important to set boundaries, to not have this
justamente, no sé, ¿verdad? Si
permissive
quiere impactar
parenting,
colaboración,
and
la
to
colaboración que
impact
requiere de todas y todos,
the
y pues ya
collaboration
prácticamente
that's required from
culminando tres
everyone.
puntos muy específicos que
And
nos comentaba esta
three
Angelina.
specific steps in the
Muchísimas
plan
gracias
that Angelina
por sus
presented to us.
participaciones.
Thank you very
Ahora me
much for
gustaría
all your
preguntar
participations. And now I'd
si
like to
alguna persona
ask if
adulta que se
anyone,
encuentra
any
justamente
adult
en el Zoom quisiera
that is
participar,
precisely
aportar
here would
algo
like
más
to
en torno a esta
participate,
pregunta o en
add
torno a lo que
something on this
comentaron
subject
las y los adolescentes.
of what the
Ahora sí que
teenagers
el micrófono
mentioned.
es suyo, no sé si quieran por ahí abrir
The
su
mic is
mic o
yours.
levantar la mano
If you can raise your
o abrir
hand
el
or
micrófono.
just open your mic.
No sé si hay alguien ahí que quiera participar. Adelante, Juan
Yes,
Martín.
please go ahead, Juan Martin, if you'd like to participate.
Hola, muy buen día. Gracias.
Hi,
Por
good morning
todos
to
los aportes que
everyone.
han
Thank you
hecho
for all your
las y los adolescentes que nos acompañan. Bueno, quisiera complementar, yo creo que uno de los
contributions.
desafíos
I'd
que
like to
tenemos en
mention that one
adultos
of the challenges
en
that we
hoy
have
día
in the adult
es
world, and
cómo
perhaps it's
vamos
very
cambiando la
obvious,
cultura del
is
adultocentrismo,
how we change
que
this
claramente hace muy
adult-centric culture
difícil que
that
podamos partir de la
makes it very
misma
difficult
tabla,
for
de las
us
mismas
to
emociones
come from
cuando
the
estamos
same emotions,
conversando
from the same
sobre
brigade
la
where when
crianza
we're
positiva.
talking about
Porque
positive
claramente la
parenting,
construcción
because
adulta y esto
clearly
lo
the
deben de
adult
ser ustedes,
construction, and
lo
the
observarán.
children and teenagers
Hay
might
una
observe this,
presión a las
is that
familias, a las
there's a
personas
pressure
adultas
towards
de
families
ser un buen
and adult
papá o
families
una
to
buena
be
mamá.
a good
Y esa
parent,
presión
a good
está en
father
el
or mother.
contexto
And that pressure
familiar,
is in the
comunitario,
family
escolar.
context, in the
Y eso
community
implica tener
and school
dominio, tener
contexts.
control sobre los niños y
And
las
that
niñas. Y
we
eso
should have
también hace
control over this.
difícil los procesos de
And it makes it
participación
very
y de escucha,
difficult
por
for
supuesto,
children and
y
teenagers
cómo
to
construir una
participate, to
crianza
be listened to, and
positiva.
of course,
Por ello,
how
lo que
to
ustedes
construct
planteaban de
positive
más
parenting.
capacitación,
What you were
sobre todo
mentioning,
énfasis en
to
el
have more
currículo, ¿no?
training and to
Formación
emphasize
es un
more
poquito distinto a capacitar.
on
Me
certain
parece que es
training.
central.
I
Esto
think
lo
it's something
reconocemos
central.
como un cambio
It's what
cultural
we know as a cultural
que
change
necesitamos
that
trabajar
we
desde
need to
los
work on
establos en la política pública,
from the state itself
también
in
en las
public policy,
familias,
but
en las
also
escuelas,
in families and
porque
schools.
aunque pensamos en la crianza
Because
positiva,
even if we
fundamentalmente las
think about
familias,
positive parenting,
también las escuelas son
fundamentally
espacios
within
donde
the
se
family,
da
schools are also
ámbitos
spaces
educativos.
where we
Y
can have
ojalá
these
algún día logremos dejar atrás
educational
el concepto de crianza
guidelines. And we can leave behind older parenting concepts and change it more towards an accompaniment thing. Well, this thought is pretty far away from coming into fruition, but we have been supporting on ourselves on children and students, and parenting should be a vertical thing, which leads us to many issues. And more than talk about it as a euphemism of positive parenting, we still have our issues with this, and we have a very preoccupying situation. And the answer of many authorities to the positive parenting notion is to chastise all in every expression of violence or ill treatment. In Mexico, for example, we are taking the persons that indulge in violence to prison, and something very delicate, because something else, a tendency that we are observing in parenting is how they're damaging children with violence, and afterwards they're separated from their family and sent to institutions that are not always the most appropriate ones. And the children remains a victim of this as well. So this is a cultural challenge, and the need to think that if we don't do it, starting with the state, with public policy, with very clear intentions, in practice, we will have bad decisions, bad actions, no matter what the good intentions were. But we must appeal to the basic sense to accompanying children and teenagers as our role as adults, our parental responsibility. But not to forget that this is a human rights subject as well. Thank you very much, Juan Martin. Just to remind you and to ask that you participate 1.5 minutes with your, and no more, so we can give other people the opportunity to participate as well as the teenagers. I'd like to give the mic to Manuel Abarca. Thank you very much, and thanks to the teenagers that are collaborating here and help us realize adult centrism, because when we finally are able to change this conception that I have to raise a minor as an adult, we have this verticality that hurts us so much. But when we think about it more in a sense of I'm taking care of someone else, they're taking care of me, I have my responsibility to develop these abilities, I think that that's where minors can achieve precisely participate in a leading role of their parenting. The person that's with me right now doesn't know everything. They do not have to know everything. And I generate this level of empathy from my experiences. And I think it's very important. And one of the main things that people that I work with tell me is, well, can you give me some daily examples? Where are they? We can only take those out of the participation of children and teenagers when they're involved. Those are the examples we need in order to comprehend what this accompaniment from the positive and ability development is. So thank you very much. Please keep on participating and trying to generate effective communication channels that will break away with the adult centrism idea. Thank you very much. And I think your participation is very close to what Andrea mentioned, to have agreements and how we put these into practice. Thank you very much. Please go ahead, Edith. Other people think of the same thing. And we all start changing with a grain of sand. And there are many other people that all together can, I believe that Children and teenagers can truly thrive in a loving family. Not everyone, not all of us have had a family in which we were loved. We always had issues. Like, for example, my father was violent physically and psychological towards my mother. And there was a moment which
Perdimos la conexión de Edith, pero bueno,
I think we lost
recuperar un
Edith's
poco lo que
connection,
pudimos,
but to
escuchar, y retomando lo que
take
también
back
ya
something
decían
from what she
otras
mentioned
voceras y
and
voceros,
what
es
other
escuchar y dar
people have
espacio
mentioned
también
as
para
well,
todas las vivencias, ¿no? Y
and
escuchar
generate a
desde
space for
cómo ha
all these
funcionado y cómo
experiences
les ha
and
parecido que
how
funciona para
to see
justamente
how some spaces
como
have worked
personas
and how
adultas,
others have not.
gobiernos, países,
So, such
justamente
as for
podamos
adults,
ahora sí
governments,
que implementar y
public
atender
spaces,
ahora sí
so
que
we're
temas
able to
prioritarios.
implement
Me gustaría dar la
what's a
palabra primero a
priority. I'd like
Isabela.
to hand the mic to Maria Julia. Please go ahead.
Muy buenas tardes a
Good afternoon
todos
to
y
everyone.
todas. Gracias, Sangari.
Thanks to
Solamente en
Sangari.
este minuto y medio que
I'd like to
nos
mention in
da
this minute and a
para
half,
compartir,
I'd like to
quería hacer
share
referencia a algo que nos
and
traía
refer to something that
Benedict cuando
Benedict
nos
mentioned
hablaba del miedo,
when he
del
was
miedo a
talking about
expresarse en ese proceso justamente de construcción de la
the fear
participación.
to express themselves in
Entonces,
constructing
nomás
participation.
poner y agregar
Just to add to that,
el hecho que la crianza
the fact
positiva
that positive parenting
iguala a adultos y a niños justamente
sets
en
us
ese
on the same
nivel de
place, adults and
emoción.
children, emotionally
Por
speaking.
más adultos o
It doesn't
experiencia
matter
o
how
personas con
old
experiencia que podamos ser,
we are or how much experiences we have, we also transit the same emotions that children and teenagers do in the same spaces. And I think that the opportunity that is given to us by this framework of positive parenting is precisely that, the to enable spaces and timing and listening with this emotional transit, and to recover the dimension of this statement, not just for public policy, to keep on being a space for warmth and for love. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
No, gracias a ti, María Julia. Bueno, o sea, justamente integrarles como parte de la política pública y como pieza clave.
Well, just to
de
tell you
esa
about
generación.
public
Muchísimas
policy,
gracias.
and
Doy la palabra
this is
a
key in
Ivette
the
Ávila.
equation. So thank you very
Muchísimas
much.
gracias. Hola a
I
todas y a
hand
todos.
over the
¿Cómo
floor
están?
to
Un gusto vernos por acá.
Yvette.
Pues yo quisiera
Hi,
nada más
it's very
decirles que
nice
en
to
este
see you all
minutito
here. I'd like to
la
mention
primera idea retomar un poco lo que decía
and
Juan Martín.
to talk about this
Que
first
aquí
idea of what
efectivamente
Juan
nosotros,
Martin
adultos, los
mentioned.
que ahora nos toca
Effectively, we as adults
acompañar en este
that
desarrollo a las niñas y a
accompany
los niños, pues también
children and
fuimos
teenagers
educados
in
en otros
their
contextos.
development, we were
Nosotros no
also
tuvimos
educated in other kinds
esa
of
perspectiva que
contexts.
afortunadamente
We
se ha ido
didn't have this
evolucionando en el tema de la
perspective
crianza
that,
positiva,
fortunately,
cariñosa y
we're
respetuosa,
talking about in
porque estos derechos precisamente
caring,
son derechos que ustedes, niñas
raising,
y
positive
niños,
parenting,
han
because these are
ido
rights that you
trabajándolos
children
y lo hemos ido
have been
trabajando de la
working on, and
mano
we've
desde
been
la
working on
política
it
pública, desde los
side by
derechos,
side
para que queden en el centro de la
in
discusión
public
justo
policy,
eso,
in
que
your
ustedes
rights,
tienen
because
derecho
the
a
center of the
tener un
discussion be
desarrollo
about your
integral
right
y
to
un
have an
desarrollo integral
integral
parte de
development,
la
and this
estructura, primero por
development
supuesto de la estructura de
comes
derechos de
from
ustedes, que
the
por cierto aquí en Nuevo León,
your
fíjense, ya se
rights
van a estar conociendo
structure,
para cuando
which
vengan,
in Nuevo León,
les
when you
cuento
come here,
que
it's going to be
en la
great
ley
because
nosotros tenemos
and
un derecho por ahí muy
we have a
establecido de manera
right,
puntual que es justo el derecho a la parentalidad
that
asistida.
is a
Y
right
esa
to
parentalidad asistida tiene todo que ver
assisted
con
parenting, and it
brindarles
has
herramientas a
everything
los
to do
papás
with
para que pongan en
providing
práctica de mejor manera todas
parents
las
with tools
herramientas
so they
que tienen que
can
tener justo
put
para
into
garantizar los
practice
derechos que ustedes tienen a ser atendidos, a ser
to
acompañados por el
respect your
proceso
rights, to be cared
de
for,
crianza
to
y
be
por este
accompanied
proceso de acompañamiento en todo lo largo de su vida. Y por supuesto,
throughout all your
también
life.
poner estos
And
dos
of course, it's
conceptos juntos,
vital to
una
use
crianza
these two
respetuosa
concepts
y
for
comprensiva, que estos son
respectful and
conceptos que la
caring
verdad no supieron
parenting.
utilizarlo mucho nuestros
These are
padres y nuestros
concepts that
abuelos
our
porque tenían
parents did
otra
not know how
estructura
to
en la
use
forma
because they
de
had another
criarlos y de
structure
ponerlos y ahora
for
juntos estamos
parenting.
tratando de mejorar
and imposition, but we're trying to improve these structures, and much of it we're doing because you, the teenagers, are telling us what way to go. You're establishing your needs, and we need to look at you, and we need to listen to you, and we need to set at center point your needs. Before, it was that the legal guardians could do whatever they wanted with their children. But now, in parenting, we need tools to execute for your development. And so you will always feel protective in the family bosom. And for your parents and anyone that's involved in your raising or parenting, I want to tell you that to listen to you helps us understand, makes us understand what we need to do and how we need to add context to the parenting structure, and for it to be more an accompaniment in the family nucleus. Thank you very much. So we know what to do from our side. Thank you very much, Yvette. And to accelerate the process and hear other people out, in the next question, I will hand the word to Angelina. Please go ahead. Thank you very much once again for this space. Something that the participations make me think about is that it's very important to start to establish a positive parenting from another perspective. We have new concepts, but we're going through new challenges, more changes in our society, and I think that that's why it's important to dive into emotional intelligence subjects with children, how certain reactions make them feel, how they react to this. But it's also important to work on this with parents, because most of our adults don't know how to control their emotions. They don't know how to correctly identify when something's bothering them or how to communicate it assertively, because they were not taught this. Parenting is very complicated because if someone tells you you're a bad parent, it's hard to listen to. But in a joint process with our children, well, what bothers you? How can we solve this together? If what I say and the way I say it affects you, please express how I can improve this. This is what social life should be, more beyond social media, where we see that things are changing. And I've had the opportunity of talking about this with my mom. And she was telling me how it was so hard for her to communicate with her mother because she didn't have the trust that we now have and confidence. And this is a problem with every family. So something essential is to involve ourselves with parenting, paying attention to emotions, to see different kinds of parenting so we can have a more ample consciousness as to how can I guide my actions to not hurt others. So in this way, I'm not just growing myself, but I'm helping my child grow. If you're a mother or a father, then you can understand how your words, your tones, your expressions, the way you raise your child creates an agent of change, a person that's secure, that knows how to act through love, but mostly through respect. Thank you very much. I think what you're saying is a key element in it. And to conclude this first part, I will hand the mic to Jose Adan, then to Victor, and then we'll move on to the second question. Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. My name is Jose Adan Urquipa. I'm from Bolivia. Well, I will start off with the question of parenting for children and teenagers. Well, first, let's start from the bottom line. How was it before? In my community, where I've heard many things that parents or the authorities what they used to do. They did not let women talk or girls because they used to think that because she's a woman or because she's young, well, they can't vote. They can't have an opinion in their community. I want change. But in this current moment, what do we want? I'm sure that in many countries there are laws and organizations that help children and teenagers, as well as projects. So now, how would we like this to be in the future? Can someone give me an answer for this? It is a question, please. Let me answer, Jose Adan. I think three phrases, and paraphrasing Julia, I like the expression of lovingness. I would also add another word, accompaniment, and another one that means that adults are not always right. If we could apply these three things day to day, educational accompaniment that we as adults were still learning. I hope this is an answer for you, Adan. Thank you.
José Dan, ¿estás por ahí?
Jose Adan, are you there? Yes, I'm here. Well, according to my own responses, in the future, I would like more transparency. Let's say that if I want to say something, I want to be heard as well. And to make things possible, that would be it.
Muchísimas gracias, José Dan.
Thank you very much, Jose Adan. And we hope to walk towards that. And we'll conclude with you, Victor. Please go ahead. Thank you very much. Well, I've been listening very attentively to the teenagers and adults' contributions as well. And I'd like to emphasize a problem that I think that shows in these issues. We have a duty, a must be, as parents, as children, and we have many traditions behind this. But the true possibility that a parent, father or mother, control their emotions, as Shelina was mentioning, their concrete emotions, and sometimes in stressful situation or in a situation that they have other pressing issues, there's an instance here. And in that sense, the accompaniment, it has to be, well, they must not feel like they're being inspected or to tell people what they need to do. But to have a critical view of this, for self-criticism, so they start thinking. And they can think by themselves. When we talk about accompanying the parents to open up these spaces for children and teenagers, I think that sometimes we're missing this idea of promoting attitude change. I think that that's main thing here. Thank you very much. Every contribution is important, and we definitely have to rethink how this accompaniment works. So I'd like to state the next question, and we can move on to the second part of the webinar within our time frame. The second question is, what challenges do you think institutions have for this subject to be a priority in our country? I'd like to hand the mic to Emmanuel. Well, first of all, good afternoon to everyone. I am Emmanuel from Paraguay. I'm 50 years old, and I'm a representative of teenagers
Primero que nada, quiero dar a saber qué es
organization,
la crianza positiva.
something that sounded
Son
like CONALU.
prácticas de cuidado, de protección,
Well, positive
formación y
parenting
guía
is a
que ayuda al desarrollo y
group
crecimiento
of
saludable de los niños, niñas y adolescentes. Como ya escucharon en
subjects
esto,
that will
la
help
crianza positiva es algo
children and
sumamente muy
teenagers develop.
importante, es un factor
Something very
que
important in positive
ayuda a
parenting
la
is
salud mental de los niños y
something that has to
adolescentes
do with mental health
y
of children and teenagers,
nos provee muchas cosas.
and it
Y bueno,
provides us with
respondiendo a la
many things.
pregunta,
And to answer the
¿qué
question,
retos creo
what
que que
challenges
tienen las instituciones de mi
do
país?
I think my
Primer
country's
reto que
institutions face?
identifiqué es
I
la formación
identified
y concientización para
training,
los padres de
education,
una
and
buena crianza
awareness
positiva en el país.
for
Un
parents
reto es de que se incorpore como eje
so we
de
can have positive
prioridad
parenting in our
la salud
country,
mental en las
and to
políticas de crianza positiva. La
prioritize
crianza positiva es algo
mental
sumamente
health and
importante
positive
porque
parenting. Positive parenting is
cuando
something
uno
very
recibe
important
una
because
buena
when
crianza positiva,
one
se siente
receives positive
bien,
parenting, they feel good.
tiene una buena salud mental,
One has
no tiene
proper mental
problemas y
health,
bueno, los
does not have
adolescentes,
issues,
los
and
niños y
well,
adolescentes nos sentimos bien
teenagers
cuando,
and children, we
o sea, nos
feel good.
actuamos bien cuando nos sentimos bien.
We
Esa sería
act
como una
properly
pequeña
when
frase.
we feel good. That
Y
would be like small phrase there, but
recalcando algo de lo que dijo
well,
uno de los compañeros
highlighting
con el que
something
no
one of my
podemos ver,
peers mentioned that, sorry, I
de
don't remember your
que
name,
pueda añadirse más la participación activa de los
that they
adolescentes y
can
niños
participate more
sobre
in
este tema
positive
que es la
parenting
crianza
in teenagers
positiva
and
para escuchar
children,
sus opiniones,
and
las
become more
problemáticas
involved
que
to listen to
tienen
their
y
opinions,
muchas otras cosas
the
porque
issues they
nada sin
have, and
nosotros,
many
sin
other things,
nosotros.
because
Y bueno, eso
it's not about
quería
us
decirles a
without
todos. Muchas
us.
gracias por su atención
That's what I wanted to tell
y
everyone. Thank you very much for your attention, and that's it.
No, a ti, Emanuel,
No, thank you,
muchísimas
Emmanuel.
gracias y sobre todo
Thank you
por
very
tocar
much,
algo tan
and
importante como incluir la salud
mostly
mental en las
for
políticas
mentioning
públicas
something so
federales.
important such
Muchísimas
as
gracias.
mental health and
Me
public
gustaría
policy.
darle la
Thank you very
palabra en
much.
segundo
I'd
lugar
like
a
to
Jimena.
hand the mic to Jimena. Please go ahead.
Bueno, hola, soy Jimena Naí, tengo 11 años, soy del país de México. Escogí
I'm
ser
Jimena. I'm from
vocera
Mexico.
porque aparte de escuchar
I
y
wanted to
estar
be a
demasiado
spokesperson
participativa,
because
participo
not
mucho
just listening, I
y bueno, me
really
convencí.
enjoy participating as
Hace
well.
un
So
poco
I'll
me puse a
just
pensar
start.
cuáles son los
I
retos que
started
tienen
thinking
todas
not
las
long ago,
instituciones para
what are
que
the
los niños,
challenges that all the
niñas y
institutions
adolescentes
have for
podamos
children
participar en
and
la
teenagers to
mejora
be
de la
able
crianza
to
positiva como política
participate
pública?
in
Y
improving
bueno, primero que nada,
positive parenting as a public policy.
reconocer y
So first of
garantizar
all,
este
to
derecho
recognize and
reconocido a la
guarantee
participación
this
para
right
que todos los niños, niñas y adolescentes
of
puedan decir lo que
participation
piensan, sobre
for
todo en
all
diferentes
teenagers
temas
and
que
children
les
to say
afectan
what
o que
they
les
think,
importan. Porque cuando vamos
especially
a que les
in
importa un tema,
issues that are
afecta
affecting
muchísimo.
them.
Entonces,
Because
tenemos
when
que abordar
something
ese tema.
affects a
Otro
child,
sería promover espacios
when they're
de
interested in the
participación
subject,
infantil
they
y
have a great
juvenil para que
imagination.
los
All
niños,
there
niñas y
has to do
adolescentes
with
puedan participar donde se sientan seguros
spaces
de sí
for
mismos,
participation
donde
for
los niños
children to
apoyen a que
feel
pues, se
sure of
expresen de esa manera.
themselves there
También sería
and be allowed to
dar una
express
cultura
themselves
basada en el
properly,
respeto
and
hacia
to
todos los
promote a
niños, niñas y
culture based on
adolescentes para
respect
que
for
puedan
children and
sentirse
teenagers so
muy,
they
muy,
can
muy seguros.
feel
Porque siento
very
que todos los
secure
niños, niñas y adolescentes tenemos mucho que decirnos
and
entre
safe,
nosotros.
because I
Y
think
si
that
nos
we all have
compartimos, por
much to
ejemplo,
say.
hace poquito fui a un evento,
Because
comparto con
not
compañeros
long
podemos
ago, I went to an
compartir
event,
y siento que
and if I shared with
una,
my
pues
peers,
un
we
diálogo
can
y
promote
respeto
it.
es demasiado
And it has to
importante.
do
También fortalecer las capacidades de
with
las niñas, niñas y
strengthening
adolescentes
abilities
para la
of
igualdad de género
children
y
and
se pueden
teenagers
participar.
so they
Porque
can
hay muchos
feel
niños que no participan en diferentes aspectos, como los
secure about
deportes, participar
participating.
aquí en Cindy,
And in
porque
many
no nos sentimos
things, in
seguros.
sports,
Y
and
hay muchas
sometimes we don't
inseguridades que
participate
nos
because we don't
ayudan o
have
que nos
that
impulsan a participar, que
security,
nos sintamos más
that
seguros.
self-esteem.
Y
They
cuando
should
voy
make
a
us
eventos, hay personas a las que
feel
admiro,
more secure
como
about
la
ourselves. When I go to events, there are people I admire,
licenciada Verónica,
such
la
as
maestra Ivette, la doctora
Licenciada
Jimena.
Verónica,
Ellas me hacen
Mastribet,
sentir más segura,
Doctora Jimena.
porque
They make me
cuando
feel
veo que
better about
participan,
myself.
siento, yo también quiero ser como
Because when
ellos.
I
Es
see that
cuando
they
me
participated,
impulsan,
I look up
cuando
to them.
ellos
I want to
me
participate like
hablan,
them.
me dicen que yo puedo y siento
And
que
they
la
tell me
seguridad
that I'm
es uno de los
capable.
retos más grandes
And I feel
que
that the
nosotros tenemos.
authorities is one of the biggest challenges that
Y
we
ofrecer un
have
espacio para que
to
podamos
allow us
participar.
to participate,
Y bueno, soy
to
Jimena
promote this
Naí,
space for
espero
us.
que les
And
haya
I'm
gustado mi
Jimena.
participación.
I hope
Y
you
recuerden
enjoyed my
que soy de
participation.
México.
And please
Bueno,
remember, I'm from Mexico. And well, that's it.
No, muchísimas gracias a ti, Jimena.
Thank you very much,
De
Jimena,
verdad por todos tus aportes y
for all
decirnos al
your
contar con espacios seguros, sobre todo
contributions,
con referentes de
and to
confianza
have
que están
secure
dentro de las
spaces
instituciones que nos
and
puedan brindar estos espacios.
competent adults within
En breve doy
these
la palabra a quienes tienen la mano
spaces.
levantada. Nada más me gustaría dar la palabra
I will hand the word to someone else, but I'd like Melanie to speak first.
Saludos a todos los participantes de este webinar. Mi nombre
I'd
es
like to greet
Melanie,
all the
tengo 15
participants
años
of this
y estoy
webinar.
muy
My name is
emocionada de
Melanie. I'm
estar
15
aquí
years old,
representando a Guatemala
15 years
a
old,
la
and I'm very
institución
excited to be
SEIPA.
here
Quiero compartirles con
representing
ustedes
SIPPINNA
por qué
institution in
decidí ser
Guatemala.
vocera en el tema
I'd
de
like to
educación
share with you
positiva.
why I chose to be a
La razón
spokesperson
por la
for
que
positive
acepté ser
parenting.
vocera en este tema es muy personal. A lo largo de
It's
mi
a
vida he
very
sido
personal
testigo de cómo
reason.
la
Throughout my
crianza
life, I've been
puede
a
influir
witness
en el
of how
bienestar y el
parenting
desarrollo
can
de los niños y
impact
adolescentes.
development
Creo
and
que todos
well-being of children
merecemos
and
un entorno
teenagers. I feel
amoroso y
we all
respetuoso para
deserve
crecer y
a
prosperar.
loving
Quiero
and
contribuir a
respectful
crear
environment to
conciencia sobre
grow
la
and prosper.
importancia de esta
I want to
crianza y cómo
contribute to
puede aumentar
creating
la felicidad
awareness
en nuestra
in this
vida y en el
subject and how
futuro
it
de nuestros
can
países.
mark
Es
a
inspirador
difference
escuchar
in
las
our lives.
opiniones de mis
It's
compañeros
very
sobre la
inspiring to
crianza
hear the
positiva.
opinions of
Estoy de
my
acuerdo
peers,
en que la concientización es un desafío
and I agree
fundamental.
that
La falta de los
creating
recursos
awareness
económicos,
is
las barreras
basic
sociales y
for
culturales
for us to
también
achieve
dificultan
this.
el
Sometimes
avance.
there are cultural
Además, los que he
barriers
mencionado sobre
that
la
make
necesidad
things more
de un
difficult,
enfoque
but I also want
funcionalmente
to highlight
efectivo
the
de las
need
instituciones
and
en personas
focus of
capacitados con
the
necesidades
institutions
para
and
abordar
people that
este
are
tema de manera
well
integral.
trained
En cuanto a los
to
retos que enfrentan las instituciones para
engage
que
with
la
this
crianza
subject
positiva sea una
integrally.
prioridad en nuestros países, considero
Positive
que la
parenting
falta de
should be,
conciencia y
for it to
conocimiento,
be
junto con las
a
barreras
priority,
culturales
I
establecidas
think that
y las
the
limitaciones de
cultural
aprendizaje
barriers and
son
limited
obstáculos
resources
muy
are
grandes.
obstacles, very
Además,
clear
la
obstacles.
evaluación
These
y
are the
seguimiento
challenges also
constante son
to
cruciales
evaluate and
para
constant
garantizar que las políticas
follow
y
up on these
programas
subjects
implementados
are
estén
essential
teniendo un impacto positivo
for
en la sociedad.
what's in place
También es
to
esencial
guarantee
involucrar
a positive
activamente a
impact
los
on
niños y
society.
adolescentes en
It's
la
also
toma de
essential to
decisiones
involve children and
relacionadas con la
teenagers in
crianza
decision
positiva.
making
Creo firmemente que
related
superar
to
este
positive
desafío
parenting.
requiere la
I
colaboración de
think
todos,
that
tanto
to
instituciones gubernamentales, no
oversee these
gubernamentales,
challenges with
profesionales,
organizations,
comunidades y
governmental or not,
la
and
sociedad en general.
communities and
La
society in
crianza
general
positiva debe ser una
should all be
prioridad en la
involved
agenda
in
política y social de nuestros países, con la
prioritizing
asignación
positive
adecuada de
parenting
recursos y un
with
compromiso muy,
the
pero muy serio.
resource,
Podemos hacer que la
the
crianza positiva
accurate
sea
resource
una realidad
assigned.
en
We can
Guatemala
create
y en
positive
todos los
parenting
países
reality
americanos.
in Guatemala
Quiero
and all Latin
agradecerles a
American
todos por
countries. I'd like
escucharme
to
y por
thank you
ser
all for
parte de esta
listening to me
importante
and
conversación.
for being part of this
Recuerden,
very important
cada voz
conversation.
cuenta y cada
Please
esfuerzo suma
remember that
para
every
lograr un
voice
cambio
counts and every
significativo.
effort
Juntos podemos
adds
crear un entorno
to
donde los niños y
creating
adolescentes puedan crecer,
significant change.
aprenderse,
And we
aprender a
together
desarrollarse
can
en un ambiente
grow
amoroso
and
y
learn to
respetuoso.
develop
Gracias por
ourselves
su atención y
within a
compromiso.
loving and respectful
No, al
environment. Thank you for
contrario, gracias a
listening
ti,
to me and for
Melanie,
your
y no,
commitment.
gracias por estos
Quite
espacios
the
y para
contrary. Thank you,
ustedes
Melanie.
que los
And
construyen y que los
and
hacen
thank you
posibles.
for creating these
Me
spaces, for
gustaría dar
making
la
these
palabra a
spaces possible.
continuación a
I'd like to
Jairo
hand the
Perú.
word to
Adelante, Jairo.
Heide Peru. Well, good morning, Jairo. I'm Jairo from Peru. Member of the Pantoc Network. I'm 16 years old, and going back to the challenge that institutions have for positive parenting to be a priority, well, mainly I think that one of the most important factors is awareness. We need to create awareness of the importance of this subject and also education, because we must not only educate teenagers and children, but parents as well. They're fundamental people in this raising or parenting process, because we're most of all talking about caring, and sometimes people don't have a guide of how the world is, and they may have some questions in their life and when they're growing up that can become problematic in their mind, in their consciousness. Something that I would also like to mention is about resources and promotion. We should have resources in order to educate about this subject, to make it more effective, more direct, and also include certain programs, educational programs within this subject. And I think that service is fundamental as well in order to find data on this subject, metrics. Also, the promotion or an outreach of positive parenting. Many people don't know about this method. It has to be within the system as well. and to seek information, correct information, trustworthy information, because there are many sources that speak about this subject. And there can be campaigns in order to promote this subject. Because we all have access, at least once in a while, to social media. We should use that. Thank you very much. It's very important what you place on the table. Sarai from Colombia, please go ahead. Please go ahead, Sarai. Hi, good afternoon. Sorry for activating my mic, but so late. But I'm at school right now. That's all right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Sarai. I'm 15 years old, and I represent Colombia. I'm very excited to be here today. I'd like to start by saying this small phrase. A child educated without love is an adult without a soul. I will move on from here. Positive parenting is a method for raising children based on respect and empathy. Many investigations have proved that positive parenting is more effective than traditional parenting methods such as punishment or authoritarian control. But there are a few challenges that the institutions have to move from in order to really help. First is a stigma related to positive parenting. Many people think that it is a way of being permissive, or you can do whatever you want. It's not like that. It doesn't mean that. It has to do with having respectful boundaries. Another subject is the lack of information and lack of education for parents so they can apply positive parenting correctly, and so they can speak and have this trust with their children from day to day. Many people do not even know what positive parenting is or how to act on it. And this is not taught at schools or at home, because it's much easier to just threaten us, hit us. And that's the way we learn that we mustn't do that, but the only thing that they put in our heads is that we can't say anything at all because they're going to hurt us. Finally, the institutions must overcome financial barriers. Because, for example, in my country, there are several courses and programs on what positive parenting is, but they're very expensive. And there's a difficulty for lower income families to gain access to that. So they should work to make positive parenting a priority, because it has the potential to improve families and children's lives and to create a more just and
Muchísimas gracias a
equal
Sarai.
society. Thank you very much,
Pues sí,
Sarai.
sin duda es importantísimo lo que nos dices de tomar en
Without a
cuenta
doubt,
nuevamente
it's
la
very
diversidad de
important what you
Para continuar, le doy la palabra a Jorge. Adelante, Jorge.
Hola, mi nombre es Jorge Daniel, soy de Nuevo
Hi, my name is Jorge Daniel. I'm from Nuevo León, Mexico. I'm 11 years old and I represent the Children's Club of Nuevo León. I wanted to be a spokesperson because I think these subjects that we talk about in my community affect me, childhood, and teenagers in general. I want to be a lawyer when I grow up, and if I start right now to defend children and teenagers' rights, it's very important. I think that positive parenting is to replace punches and punishment with love and respect. I think it's also very important for parents to know this so they can have a good relationship with the children, and for children to develop in a better way. And when they're older, so they can relate, I don't know, more in a better way and not resort to violence. And as the question asks, what challenges do the institutions have? And besides representing my school, I'm part of and I represent a civil organization, a civil society that seeks to create communication spaces, assertive communication, where it provides tools for developing our values and skills, as well as respect for teenagers and children to be applied. And they replicate these things with these courses with their families, with the parents. As part of the challenges for institutions, here's my proposal. As part of the awareness campaign, it could be through restructuring of society with policies that benefit us, such as television. 8 from 10 children have access to TV. We can also propose a short film contest promoting positive parenting. Well, thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you, Jorge, and thank you for sharing with us the dream you have for your career and in the mass media to use them in order to have further outreach. Valeria from Ecuador, please go ahead. Okay, my name is Valeria, and I'm very happy to be here in this very important meeting. I'm from the Movement for Being a Child, which is an organization led by children, teenagers, and certain adults that gives us a voice. To answer this question, in my opinion, some challenges are to prioritize the importance of medical controls for children, to have a follow-up on nutrition, and the caring from parents. And also, rights for children and teenagers that have been violated because they come from certain things that are not being done. And this affects their lives directly. To make sure that children and teenagers that have to face pregnancy resulting from rape to be a priority for the government, because they have the responsibility of creating and applying protection public policy, and that they also have the participation of parents, especially in protection, nutrition, and other aspects of their life. It's important to have a policy focused on local governments, because in Ecuador's strategy, there's a campaign called Grow Up Without Malnutrition. It's only technical, but the rest of the institutions keep on doing what they do without any change. And prevention and medical attention are also important. That would be my participation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Valeria, and especially the importance of mentioning how positive parenting has to do with attention and prevention in these areas, in these domains. Thank you very much. To guarantee the participation of people that we had foreseen, I hand the mic to Diego. Hi, I'm Diego. I'm from Mexico. I'm member of a few institutions collaborating with World Vision. I like opportunities like these to dialogue and having my voice heard in subjects that only used to belong to adults. When we mention positive parenting, we speak about respect, rights, and creating discipline without resorting to violence. Even though parents are informed of this, it's not always put into practice, and it's still arguable that it's being performed correctly. But it's our duty to create awareness, and it's important to inform people from Mexico on positive parenting so they can raise children and have the proper information. I've thought of 5 proposals. One is to have TV ads, specifically in open channels, public channels, to speak about this subject in places where people can learn, such as schools and other educational centers. 3, to have activities focused on this subject in public spaces, such as parks, governmental spaces, to invite parents and the people that are in charge of children to set up ads on the street so everyone can learn. And 5, content for social media produced by children and teenagers directed towards parents. Well, I have stated my proposals. I hope you consider it and put it into practice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Diego, and especially for setting on the table these very punctual proposals of what we can do with the institutions and to have more outreach in media, through media. So thank you very much. I'd like to briefly read the participations that we had in the chat because of the connection issues. And precisely Edith says, the proper raising with respect and love. My opinion is that a good upbringing is to raise us with love and respect, not only in our family, but also schools and everything that unites society. And to create more places where one can feel secure, where we can express everything we've not been able to say out loud, and where our voice is not put down. I'd like to open the participation. Because of the time we only have time for 4 people to participate. So we can move on to the next part of the webinar. So, Jimena, please go ahead. Please remember that the participations must be very brief for everyone to be able to speak. Well, hi. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all my peers that just participated. And I observed, and I want to mention that I feel that violence should never be justified, even less accepted, especially if it has to do with positive upbringing. We must all have a healthy environment. And something very quick, I'd also like to mention that challenges will always be too many because there are many countries here, and we'll never run out of challenges. So we have talked about the challenges. Now we have to comply with them and follow up on them, as we have seen for the institutions. Well, they must be implemented. And as I mentioned, we will always have challenges. We have a lot of countries with a lot of violence, but I think that together as a team, we can end this, or not. Thank you very much, Jimena. We hope so. As you mentioned, well, it's all our turn now. So I hand the word to Erika. I saw that she raised her hand. Yes, good afternoon. Well, I was taken out of the chat. Sorry. First of all, I want to congratulate the existence of these spaces so teenagers can express themselves and recognize that perhaps in our time, we did not have this space to be asked our opinions regarding our upbringing. I'm in my workspace in Monterrey, Nuevo León. I'm in the national DIF system, DIF, the state DIF system. I'm with my peers here and they're listening. What I think the challenge that we have as an institution is, besides making parents aware, is to work with teenagers and children about their support networks beyond the information they may have on certain key concepts related to their psychoeducational upbringing, development. And well, they should know that, well, my parents are not perfect. They don't know 100% what might happen, because in our day-to-day, we have many problems, but we need to identify the social networks that my parents have, that I have, in order to approach them and seek support. Beyond the concept of education, assertive communication, respectful upbringing, there's a lot to do here, because there are some parents we see a lot of this. Oh, I lost it. We have parents from all age groups, and they lack a lot of information regarding this. But anyways, congratulations for opening up this space for children to share their thoughts. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much, Erika. I hand over the mic to Andrea. Please go ahead.
Muchísimas gracias. Bueno, me gustaría volver a agradecer el espacio.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank you once again for opening up this space, for providing this space, and I really like listening to everything we proposed here, and I hope that our opinions are taken into account, and it's been an amazing experience. Thank you all. Thank you, Andrea, for being part of this and co-creating this with all of us. Well, because of time, I will conclude this participation with Miguel. Thank you very much. I was having some issues with my mic. Thank you for creating this space. Thanks to the teenagers that are here and children, because it's very nutritious to listen to your comments. And I was listening to my colleague from DIF and following up on this, and for some feedback, I think for the adults that are here in this collaboration synergy, I counsel SIPPINNA and also the human rights of teenagers and children's section. I'm an activist for their rights and also Infancia Feliz, happy childhood. And just to conclude this part, I'd like to invite the adults that are here and were responsible for helping to improve inside of taking something out of these spaces. And there's a very important challenge that is corruption in institutions. I find certain people in the chat and in this loving and respectful space that know the transcendence of what we do when they generate irreversible damage, psycho-emotional irreversible damage for children or teenagers. We've been studying this for about 6.5 years, and we've noticed that in some instances, such as the Supreme Court of Justice, the ODI, and DIF, and corruptelas. And I will say this with a lot of respect and clarity, that I really hope that we can create this synergy to fight what's going on in DIF. They exchange one children for another when they have their psychological tests. And besides that, in DIF, I'm not saying because of everyone, but there are some people that we know there. They have these malpractice that damage children. So to report this, it's no good, because in Mexico City's DIF, they make these results, they write false reports, that greatly affect these children. So I need to lay this on the table. Some people alienate parentally. There's psychological violence, family violence, which we have in many of the family codes and penal codes. And this will help protect the children because our work as adults, our responsibility as human beings, and activists, the ones that are also responsible to improve and propose new public policy. I think this subject gives us something to do, definitely, because we have 400 divorces daily in the country, and 9 out of 10 end up in a family court. And many of these children end up in the middle of this fight, and it greatly affects us. So let's ponder on this so we can come up with best practices and methods. Thank you very much. Just to conclude this part, I will let Diana speak, and that will be our last participation here. Hi, good afternoon to everyone. I'm very happy to be here in this last webinar towards SIPPINNA Forum. I think your contributions have been great. In my opinion, I think that a great challenge we have in Honduras for institutions is migration, because what happens? Sometimes parents, in trying to give their children a better life, migrate to other countries, United States, for example, in general. So this disintegrates the families, or sometimes the children and teenagers get left behind, and they are expected to be in charge of the family. So they're not growing up in a healthy context. They don't have anyone to give them support or advice. So sometimes they lose their way, they end up on the street, or sometimes they're abandoned. And usually the abandonment is from the father. And there are single mothers raising their children. And sometimes teenagers have to work, sometimes the children as well, and they do not experience their childhood because they're working. Child exploitation happens more in rural areas. I've seen children 10, 12 years old that need to work to support their family. Sometimes it's not because of abandonment. It's because the parents take them out of school and have them work. And they say, well, you're strong enough to work, to grab a machete and to bring some money into the house. That's what they tell them. And instead of wasting your time in school, well, start working. That's a mentality we have in many families in Honduras, and more in the low-income families. And I think that's a great challenge we have, starting with this, so this can be tended to in the country. Thank you. No, thank you very much, Diana, especially for this last participation in this very important subject, and how families and societies are structured and the impact of migration. Well, I thank you very much for your contributions. It has been a very enriching session, but I will say goodbye, but we have the second part of the webinar, and I leave you with this video that invites you to participate in a poll for, do you know what SIPPINNA Forum is? It's a space in which ideas and experiences are shared that help promotional and protection services for children and teenagers improve on their work so they can have their rights met. This is the fourth edition of this forum. In collaboration with World Vision, we've constructed this space with the 4 subjects. Please visit www.nineslibredeviolencia.org/forosipina. You will find 4 sections that will lead you to questions on the subject: public policies for health and education, challenges and advancements in the participation of civil societies in protection systems, positive parenting, and recommendations from the other SIPPINNA forums. If you're children or teenagers, besides answering these questions, we have an option for you where you can share a drawing, a comic, podcast, or picture, whatever you want. Just let your imagination fly and answer the question. How would you improve the lives of children and teenagers in the American continent? SIPPINNA Forum is a space for everyone, and your opinion is very important.